As I sat in the boat with my dad, 38 male, I knew that the conversation we were about to have is going to be a difficult one. I thought what I was going to tell my dad would destroy him, but little did I know that I was in for the shock of my life. We had come on this fishing trip to spend some quality time together and get away from the stresses of everyday life. But something was weighing heavily on my mind. We have been planning this trip forever because my dad works at a mine, so he's gone for 7 days out of a month. I have evidence that my mom, 35 female, have been cheating on him. My mom doesn't work because of her muscular dystrophy. She can't stand up for more than 2 hours straight and can't find a job that includes sitting. I am their only child. It all started a few weeks after I turned 17. Dad was off at the mines, so it was just me and my mom. I came back from high school and my mom wasn't home. Her car was parked in the driveway, and I wasn't normally worried about her not being home when I returned, thinking she was at the doctor's appointment or exercising, which normally takes her an hour or so. But that day, 6 hours passed and she wasn't back yet. So I decided to call her phone. I dialed her number and heard her phone ringing from the living room. She left her phone on the couch, thinking she must have forgotten it. I was curious, so I decided to snoop in. I knew her phone passcode because I have helped her set up some app on her phone before. I saw that she was texting someone, telling them that she was waiting for them to pick her up. Let's call the person James. He is actually the boyfriend of my mom's best friend, Carol. I got curious, so I scrolled up the text messages and was greeted with a shocking image of James Erect Johnson, and almost threw up when I saw that my mom sent him a video of herself in compromising positions. Their faces were hidden, but it was clear to anyone that knows them. It was like someone poured cold water on my face. It made me sick. Couldn't believe James and my mom were exchanging lewd pictures. Hard to unsee something like that. Seemed like they have been texting like forever. Another text that caught my eyes was my mom saying, "I want you to finish in my mouth." As hard as it was to go through the text messages, because of all the unadulterated content, my curiosity got the better of me. I continued to read more and more, and I saw that they kept talking about excess. I took screenshots of the conversation on my phone. Soon after that, a familiar car dropped my mom off in our driveway. I was looking through the window when the car drove off after dropping off my mom. And what do you know? It was my mom's best friend Carol's car. I thought maybe Carol's boyfriend was driving her car, and he was the one that came to pick up my mom because of their recent text conversation. I tried to get a closer look from the window to see who it was that dropped her off, whether it was her best friend Carol or her boyfriend James. But before I could do that, the car drove away. I waited for my mom to enter the house. Then I asked her who it was that dropped her off. She said it was her best friend Carol. Now, I was confused. I thought maybe she was lying, but I wasn't sure. Mom and Carol have been best friends for over 3 years. Mom told me that they met at an online group, and ever since then, they have been friends. And she visits our house, mostly when my dad travels for work. Her boyfriend James doesn't come by often, and I have only seen him a handful of times. I left her phone on the coffee table before she entered the house, and she picked her phone up and started texting someone and smiling and laughing as she walked into the bedroom. I was looking at her from the other side of the room, filled with disgust and shame. I have seen her do this several times over the years, but I never thought she was doing anything nefarious. Carol and other strangers have dropped her off before, and I never thought anything of it. The only difference now was the graphic text conversation I saw between her and her best friend's boyfriend, James. I thought I grew up in a loving home with a hard-working dad and a loving mother. Although I knew my mom could help out a lot more around the house, she doesn't cook or clean. Either my dad and I do all the work, and it has gotten worse since her illness. I have always blamed it on depression and her illness because I love my mom. I thought she was protective, beautiful, and successful till her disability started affecting her mental state. I wouldn't call her relationship with my dad ideal. Why they don't fight or argue a lot? Because of my dad's kind and passive nature. They don't seem like the affectionate type. After seeing the text messages, I started to see my mom with a different lens. This is a side of her that I haven't seen before. A manipulative, two-faced, and overall bad human being was a tough pill to swallow. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt before passing judgment. Now, I was clearly monitoring what she does. 3 days later, my dad was still gone. I came back from school, and my mom was gone again when I came home. She left her car in the driveway. I called her phone as she said she was at her friend's place and doesn't know when she would be home. Just out of curiosity, I went to her iPad to confirm her location, and sure enough, she was at Carol's house. I snooped into her iPad messages. That was when I found out more proof that my mom and James were sleeping, but this time I looked through the conversation between my mom and her best friend Carol as well, and Carol was sending pictures of excess toys and a card game named Excess and Consequences Game that the three of them would be trying out. I was stunned. It appears that her best friend Carol knew that they were having an affair as a 17-year-old at the time. I have watched my share of dirty movies to know what a three-way is and what exactly was going on between my mom's best friend and her boyfriend underneath my dad's nose. There was no doubt in my mind that my mom is a swinger. I was shocked. I saw text messages between my mom and her best friend, and it appears that this has been going on for years now. I also noticed talks about joining other groups and meeting up with other people. Again, I took screenshots of it with my phone. There were long conversations where my mom and her best friend were talking about having excess at their home. At least, that's what I can tell from the text messages. I also saw messages that indicated that my dad wasn't aware what they were doing. And also James was texting my mom and he wanted to come to her house and F her. And my mom's reply is that it was a boundary she would never cross. And that what if her son, which is me, finds out? My mom deleted the messages most of the time, probably because she doesn't want the text messages to be seen. Some of the text messages that I have seen and taken pictures of previously have been deleted, as if to confirm all the evidence I have collected. Mom's best friend, Carol, dropped her off again. I saw Carol's face this time as she waved goodbye to my mom. When my mom came to the door, she looked happy. She probably has always been this happy, but I have not noticed till now. She wouldn't go out for an extended period of time like this when dad was home. My dad worked his way up at his job to upper management, so he dropped out of school at a young age to raise me, and he's very successful and indispensable to his job. He's an all-around good guy and great father, and he's way better husband than my mom deserves. They have been together since they were in high school. My mom had me when she was 16 and my dad was 19. I have seen pictures of my mom when she was younger, and she was very attractive and from a religious family, which was why they married when my mom got pregnant. At least that was what I was told growing up, till I found out later that it was all a lie. Her disability started about 6 years ago and gradually progressed. After that, she stopped working. Although my mom was on disability, my dad also worked very hard at work to bring the money home so he can pay for medications and machines that my mom needs because of her illness. Nothing too severe. She's still very independent with everything but money. My dad supports her financially and supports the household. I felt that her cheating on my dad was disrespectful, especially when he travels 7 days a month to make sure that we have a better life. He has been working since he was teen. I was worried about what I should do. Although my mom was having an affair, I still love her. I was their only son. I was already 17 and about to go to college the following year. It so happened that my dad was returning home the following day, and we were supposed to go on a fishing trip like we have always done in the past. Even when my dad comes home, he's always busy doing stuff, while my mom is most of the time lazy. In fact, she barely cooks or cleans and eat out most of the time. So my dad or I would cook and clean. Her illness is always the excuse why she couldn't do anything around the house. If she can have excess with people, she's still in shape to cook and do the beans, but she doesn't even do that and lets my dad or me to do it. When my dad leaves, her laziness goes up. All she does is watch TV. She feels like she has no responsibility. She also said she would give up smoking, but only stopped when my dad threatened to leave her. Mom blamed on the fact that granddad died 5 months ago, to which I empathize and mourn too, but a move she uses as a coping mechanism. When my dad was home, her best friend Carol wouldn't come around. I noticed the frequency of the text messages slowed down because I was monitoring it from her iPad. I also saw a text communication of them talking about when my dad and I leave for our 2-day fishing trip. On the day of the fishing trip, we drove 3 hours with a fishing boat in tow to where we rented a cabin for 2 days. On our way to the cabin, I was really quiet because I was thinking about how I could tell my dad that my mom was cheating on her. Me and my dad are close than I am with my mom. He calls to check on me every day, and I consider him my best friend. My dad likes to be outdoors, and I have come to love it as well because he has been bringing me here since I was 8. We were out on the lake and the sun beating on us, and the only sound was the gentle lapping of the water against the boat. I knew I had to tell my dad about what I found out about my mom. We had the type of relationship where we share everything, but this one is different. This will break his heart and may break up our family. My heart was racing as I tried to find the right words to say. If I remember correctly, the conversation went like, "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Sure, what's on your mind?" he replied, looking at me with concern. "I think mom might be cheating on you," I blurted out, the word tumbling out of my mouth before I could even think. My dad's face fell, and I could see the pain in his eyes. He didn't say anything for a moment, just sat there, staring at the water. "What makes you think that?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath and told him about the text messages that I had seen. I could see the anger building in his eyes as I spoke, and I knew I had hit a nerve. He looked back at me, and I saw tears in his eyes as he looked away. He muttered a phrase, something to the effect of, "She would never change." I asked him what he meant by that, and he paused for a few minutes, as if he was trying to choose his right words correctly. Then he continued by saying that about 3 years ago, when he started traveling often, my mom came to him asking if they could open their relationship because he was gone 7 days out of a month. He lost it, telling her that he would divorce her if she went through with it. After an argument, he thought she had decided against it, reminding her how much he had sacrificed for our family. He paused and then finished with, "That was where they left the conversation." He went quiet and looked over the water as we continued fishing. I felt like there was more to the story by his reaction. It was a deep conversation, full of pauses and tears on my dad's part. Then my dad continued, saying that he had stopped loving my mom the way he used to about 13 years ago. He discovered that their entire relationship had been a lie. He went 18 years back when he and my mom were casually dating. All of a sudden, my mom got pregnant with me. She claimed that he was the only person she had been dating when she got pregnant. My grandfather, on my mother's side, was furious as they thought my dad had taken my mom's V card and defiled her. They attended the same church back then as my mom's father knew my dad's father. My mom's father went to my dad's father and they insisted that they get married since my dad got my mom pregnant, and supposedly my dad was the only man she had ever been with. My dad was in college at the time and had to drop out because he had to be a man and take on his responsibilities. My dad had to grow up fast. He went from a teen full of ambition with a high-power college degree to working in the mine for 12 hours a day. After she gave birth to me, my dad heard a rumor from my mom's friend turned enemy at the time that my mom was sleeping with some other guy when she got pregnant. My dad couldn't believe the friend because she recently fell out with my mom and she was saying anything to hurt her. He said that back then, paternity testing wasn't a thing as it is now, and when he confronted my mom, she denied it and gave him all sorts of reasons why her former friend was trying to destroy her. And my dad believed her. He forgot all about it and believed my mom. Moreover, he had already bonded with me and loved me more than anything and would not entertain the thought that I wasn't his son. Then fast forward 13 years ago, he was watching a show on TV called Maury's Show where they used paternity test. That was when he could actually afford a paternity test. He was curious and inquired about it. Then he did the paternity test and a few days later, the result came out, and he was shocked that I wasn't his son. He didn't confront my mom because he said that he was ashamed and convinced himself that the test result was wrong. He even went online and found articles that convinced him that paternity testing was not 100% accurate, and the people on TV were doing it for entertainment. He kept it to himself for 3 more years when he came across a case on TV where paternity test was admissible in court, so he couldn't deny it any longer. He took another paternity test and it confirmed that I wasn't his son. He was devastated and confronted my mother, and my mother admitted that she was sleeping with other men and begged for forgiveness. When my dad asked her who was responsible and why didn't she accuse the other person to take on the responsibility, she said that this was a precarious situation because she was dating my dad officially but was sleeping with her uncle, her dad's younger brother, who happened to be married at the time. According to what she told my dad, she said that her uncle manipulated her with money and gift to accuse my dad because if she exposed him, they would go to jail and she would be responsible for destroying the family, and everyone would shame her and her life would never be the same. So she followed the plan and used my dad as the fall guy. Unbeknownst to my dad, my mom and her uncle continued their affair behind his back, and he wouldn't find out about it till after her uncle passed away. The affair only stopped when her dad's brother passed away. My mom begged my dad not to abandon or expose her, claiming she was a victim of abuse. He felt like he has been scammed out of his future. He felt like he had been scammed out of college and had been forced to raise a child that wasn't his. However, when he looked at me, there was no question in his mind that he loved me like his own blood. Moreover, my mother had nowhere to go and can barely make enough on her own. My dad was convinced to stay. He claimed that it was the innocent child that did it for him. My dad was in pain, and he felt like what he could do was to focus on work. That was when he started getting promoted at his job and started making a name for himself in the mining industry. He did so because it took his mind away from the betrayal. His plan all along, before I found out about my mom's affair, was to divorce her when I go to college. He said he has been saving money and he bought properties in Asia, where his friend owned a consulting company and has been trying to convince him to work as an expatriate for years. But he had been waiting for me to go to college to make the move. He made that decision 9 years ago, and ever since, he had never truly trusted my mom and hasn't been happy in his marriage. And he suspected that my mom continued to cheat behind his back, as I have just confirmed his fears myself. He said that in a way, he regretted staying with her because he could have built a life with a woman that truly loved him and still be there for me, rather than being in a marriage that he was scammed into. But at the time, he wasn't as wise and stayed thinking he has to be the one to raise me. Till this day, my mom's affair with her uncle is still a secret, and most of my grandfather's siblings are dead, including her dad. My grandfather died 5 months ago. If my mom's uncle was my biological father, then I would have 2 older half-brothers and 1 half-sister that I didn't know about, and they don't know about me. My father said that even though I wasn't his biological son, he felt a duty to raise me to the man that I have become. I was having the shock of my life, listening to my dad. It was too much information for me to take in one day. I wasn't crying or sad, I just felt numb. Not till the end of the day did everything started to sink in. We spent the rest of the day on the boat, talking about what had happened. A few days ago, I was thinking about how I would commiserate my dad about my mom's affair. Now the table has turned, and I was rethinking my entire life. I felt like dying, but that would be a disservice to my dad that sacrificed his life for me. Growing up, I have felt nothing but love from my dad. Despite the fact that I wasn't his biological son, I never felt anything short of that. I think he had been the best dad in the world to me. I couldn't find any fault in him. He had always been supportive of me and a role model in my life. And it really cut me deep that my mother used me as a tool to manipulate him. Till this day, I have never stopped thanking him for not abandoning me and for being there for me. We decided to confront my mom about it when we got back from the fishing trip. My dad was calm and collected, and I could see the hurt in his eyes as he asked her about the text messages. My mom tried to deny it at first, but then broke down and admitted that she had been having a threesome with her best friend and her boyfriend. She blamed my dad for being less affectionate and traveling always, even though he was doing so to provide for the family. I couldn't bear to look at my mom's face, and our relationship would never be the same again. After my dad told her that I knew everything, she came to me trying to tell me her own side of the story, but I didn't want to talk to her. She went back and blamed my dad for turning me against her. Unbelievable. It got so bad that me and mom couldn't live in the same house. My dad was forced to file for divorce a month after our fishing trip, and he rented an apartment for both of us to stay in till I moved to college. His plan is to move out of the country and take the job offer overseas once the divorce is finalized. I am looking forward to visiting him outside the country. This experience has really messed me up. My dad paid for me to speak to a therapist, and I have been speaking to a therapist for a few months now. I am now in college, and I told my therapist about it, and he encouraged me to write about my experience. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please push the thumbs up button for YouTube algorithm to promote my channel. Thank you and have a